I'm Stellio, I'm an alcoholic.
Stellio.
I just want to start off by saying that I'm extremely grateful to be here because I didn't know that long-term sobriety was possible. A year ago, I arrived hopeless and broken, and my journey started, in this very room, and I'm just extremely grateful to be here, to be able to share my story. When I was born, I was born in the East Rand of Joburg to a fairly normal family, highly functional, but I realized, especially looking back, that something was different about me, in that I lived life with crushing fear ruling everything. I remember in primary school being dropped off at school by my parents and crying as soon as I got through the gate because I literally believed in my little head that they were never going to fetch me again. And that's not normal. I remember being bullied and being terrified of those bullies, and finding no way to resolve the issue that I had with them and the issue that they had with me, and that fear creating more fear. I remember being crushed by even receiving a demerit in school. So fear ruled every aspect of my life. But I had obviously no solution then, and I had no knowledge of fear. Fear, I didn't know what it really meant. From a young age, I was diagnosed with ADD and depression, and I dabbled in that stuff. I was given ADD medication probably from the age of 9 or 10. I was given antidepressants already in my matric year. But the first time I had a euphoric substance, my first drink at the age of 14, all I remember is drinking to oblivion straight away, and I loved it. I remember I had a little friend who I drank with that night, and after the second drink, I would learn years later that he was actually pouring the drinks out that I was pouring, but I kept on filling the glass and drinking and drinking and drinking, until I'd vomited all the way down my parents' passage and had passed out, and this other friend of mine, sat quivering in a corner, scared of what my parents might do when they came back home to see me like that. My parents didn't do a lot. They sort of just shrugged it off and figured a hangover would be a good punishment. But something in me was awakened that day, and I loved it, and I never stopped. So I'll go forward to when I started realizing, that my using and drinking was a problem was only about 10 years later. I had now pulled a geographical. I'd been to London, been in a mess there, couldn't hold down a job, came back to South Africa, was enabled by my family to open a little pub, which was a fantastic choice for an alcoholic. Although I wasn't ready to concede that I was an alcoholic yet. Using and drinking was still kind of manageable. It gave me energy to go about my day, and I guess, I had options. I had money coming in. I had a car that I could afford to pay. I had a house, and, I saw no reason to stop. But I started hitting this internal rock bottom, where I was using and drinking for longer and longer periods of time, binging, becoming extremely depressed. My parents extremely worried about me. I just want to step back quickly just to my sister, who I've never had a relationship with my entire life. All the bullying I used to receive in school, I took out on her. People around me started noticing that something was wrong. So I thought, what's the best way that I can put this fire out, and I started with an outpatient program at a rehab in Boksburg, and I figured as long as I pay the money that they want for that outpatient thing, I've done something about it. So I'll tell people I'm doing something about it, and I only have attended one meeting and threw all the paperwork away, and I just wasn't interested. My mess continued, and I landed up in treatment for the first time in 2010. And in retrospect, I was the guy that got written off, the second that I walked in that door. At my welcoming group, I introduced myself as, I said, "Hi, I'm Stellio. I bang lines and I bang my bar ladies." And I cringe when I think about that, because that was what a shallow person I was. Like this cardboard gangster, this little badass driving around in a sports car. It was a complete fake persona. And I didn't last there. I got sort of, started working through the steps. I didn't concede defeat. I didn't finish my step 4, and I couldn't wait to get out of there. But the truth be told, I had a relationship waiting for me when I got out. I still had that sports car parked in the driveway. It had taken me 12 long years of solid using to get to that point. So I figured, I've still got this. I can go out and I can continue. And I did that, and it took me 6 years to get into treatment again, which brings us up to last year. And by then, I had gone from somebody who was using, sort of innocently on a weekend, to somebody that was using and drinking for 7 days at a time, waking up cold and alone in my house with my parents, coming to check if I was breathing. It was strange because I always left the door open somewhere, and my dad would literally break into my house to come and find me and see if I was breathing. And even after he'd done that a couple of times, they stopped coming because they were scared that they would find me dead. My mom had phoned me once years later, years before, and it said, I've come to terms with the fact that somebody's going to phone me one day and tell me that you've passed away. But it meant nothing to me at the time. My girlfriend, who I'd gotten with after that first time in treatment, she left me, caused massive damage there. She would chase me into Benoni town, 12 o'clock on a Friday night, because I would get these ideas that I was going to use, and I'd drive to the closest, drug den, and I just can't imagine now what she went through doing that stuff, And I actually got mugged out of one of those places, and got mugged badly, and I'm lucky to be alive. But it was a completely shocking internal rock bottom that I hit, because I woke up, as I say, in my house alone, no friends left. My dealer was my only friend. My parents basically on the cusp of arranging a court interdict against me, also planning to have cops to come around to raid my place. Completely unmanageable, unemployable, miserable to be around, and for the first time in my life contemplating death, realizing inside that I'm going to wake up one day and I'm going to use and I'm going to die this way. And I remember my mom coming to me one day. This is just before I got into treatment here at the house on the hill. And I'd been on like a week bender, and she said to me, why don't you just try treatment? Why don't you just try doing something different while you still have the dignity to do so? And I don't know what divine shit happened that day, but obviously the pain within had become greater than the pain it took to change. And in that moment, I said, you know what, I'll do it. And I carried on doing what I was doing, drinking, using. I had like a week left. I arrived in Durban as high as I possibly could be, and fully believing that I'd do the time that was asked of me, and my ex-girlfriend would be waiting, at the airport with like a little banner and stuff, when I was better, and that I'd be able to put that fire out, stop using, get back, and go back to life, exactly the way that it was. But I quickly realized that, my plans don't work out. I've been running to my plan my entire life, and it's never worked out. And I remember working through my first step, and I had no problem admitting that I was powerless. All those war stories in there. I read that stuff, and after putting pen to paper, it was awesome for me. It was like going back to grade 1. Writing all that stuff down and thinking and looking and realizing what I'd become. I had no problem admitting for the first time, what, I'm powerless. In 2010, when I went to treatment the first time, I never believed that I was powerless. I had to go and bump my head and lose a lot of relationships and a lot of money, and I had to bum my head. And just back on that, something that also brought me to my demise was the death, well, the coma and resultant death of my aunt in 2014, which I used to make all about me. You know, she had a terrible car accident, and she, you know, I would go visit her in hospital, and her 3 daughters would be there praying, you know, and inviting the priest from the church, and I would still in that situation mock this, and I'd think, you know, what the hell's the priest going to do? You know, why are they praying? You know, this is not going to achieve anything. But once I'd got into treatment, admitted that I was powerless, wanted to admit that I was insane, and and then I was told I have to, you know, take on God, the concept of God, a power greater than myself. And I remember asking the spiritual guru there, how the hell am I supposed to do that? You know, like, I know I'm powerless, I'm clearly insane, but, you know, how am I supposed to admit all that stuff and now take on God? You know, it's a big ask. And he said, you know, he gave me one word, 2-syllable answer, which was willing. All you have to do is become willing. And that really meant a lot to me, you know, because I can't explain to you the power that willingness has played, or you know, the power that willingness has in my life, because that was simple, practical advice that I could use to, you know, to grasp this program, and I did, and I became willing to do everything that they said. You know, get down on my knees, hand in the step 11s, talk to my sponsor, share with people, you know, in that therapeutic community, and I did that to the best of my ability. I remember going back to the same spiritual guru and saying, listen, I'm forgetting to get down on my knees in the morning. You know, I've done a lot of drugs. I've used a lot. I'm very forgetful. Like, and he answered me in a shot, and he said, put your toothbrush under your bed. And I started doing that every single day, and that really helped. You know, it was, again, practical advice that an alcoholic like me needed. And then amazing things, you know, started to happen. I remember being at another loved one's funeral a few years ago, and the priest came to me and said, you know, do you go to church? And I was like, no. You know, I used to mock people that were into religion or God. And he said, but where do you get your answers from? And in a second I said, Google, but and that was the level of my spirituality. I had no concept, you know, of spirituality. I've spent so much time in my life trying to disprove God that I couldn't see the wood for the trees. I remember going to Sunday school, not Sunday school, it was youth, at the age of 14. And even then I was a smart ass, because I used to go with a little badge that said, Jesus is coming, look busy. And I remember the father that was doing that session looked at this little badge, and he made like this whole share about me and that badge. And I was chased away, and I thought, no, you know, again, not being able to see the wood for the trees. But after coming into treatment and having suffered the level of pain that I had to suffer, and being alive, you know, being grateful, waking up and realizing, shit, I'm alive, I'm in this beautiful place. There has to be something greater than me at work. And I had to grasp that concept, you know, because the only other option for me was to go off and die. And I realized then that once you concede defeat, then, you know, taking on God and understanding about God, that was the least of my problems. You know, I had a lot of other things to face, my previous behavior, which came in the later steps, my defects. But right there at the beginning of the process, I was glad, so glad to just take that concept of God on, and you know, now God is in my life every day. The next you know, sort of process of my step work, you know, I became honest. I spoke to another person about all my stuff, my sponsor, and to God, and that was an amazing moment for me, because I'd never offloaded like that. You know, I I always, going into that particular moment, I was like, oh my, I've done such terrible things. I'm going to be judged. My sponsor's going to think I'm mad. I can't tell somebody this stuff. But halfway through, I realized that the whole point of that process is because God had put someone in my path who related to what I'd done, and that I would relate to what he'd done, and it was one of the most beautiful things that I can remember about my time in treatment, because it was the first time that I felt at peace with the world. And my sponsor does this meditation period afterwards, where you go and meditate for an hour, and I've never been able to sit still for 5 minutes, never mind an hour. And that day, I remember it like it was yesterday, because it was complete peace. It was the first time that I felt joy arising from within me. It wasn't about seeking outside pleasure, which I've done my entire life. The next greatest thing, that I got out of that step was my character defects. I knew that I was messed up, and I knew that I was behaved badly, but to be able to attach words to the way that I behaved and the fears that I felt, that was amazing for me. I took them, I wrote them down on a piece of paper, and I read this little piece of paper up my pocket every day, and I was able all of a sudden to become aware of those defects, and I'm like, okay, that was a bit of jealousy, that was a bit of arrogance. And I don't always get it right, but I celebrated knowing that stuff, because I'd never known that stuff, and my disease doesn't want me to know that stuff about myself. But I remember them, and I'm able to recognize them as they come to play in my day, and that's incredible for me. Prayer for removal of those things. I love that, because you can pray all day and ask God for stuff, but actually, in my experience, what God gives you is a situation where you have the choice to act on those defects or to behave differently, and it's not always easy to apply that opposite spiritual principle, but this program for me is about getting up and doing the damn best that I can. It's never going to be perfection, but I can try the best that I can, and that's, as long as I've done that, as long as I get an A for effort, that's cool. Making amends, the process of amends, for me, the greatest amends that I could make to my family, and especially my sister, was by staying clean, coming to meetings, doing what was asked of me. I try to make amends to my ex-girlfriend's parents, for instance, and they wanted nothing to do with me, and that's okay, because I did the next right thing, and doing the next right thing doesn't always mean that it's going to go my way, but I did it anyway, and that's what that's what was important. And I've been faced with other amends. When I went up to Joburg earlier this year, I was able to make amends to people that I worked with, and actually cringe when they told me how I used to be. It's unbelievable. The later part of the steps, step 10, 11, and 12, maintaining that conscious contact with God. I love those steps because that's practical stuff, that I can do every day. I know when I'm doing something wrong, and I know when I'm acting out of my defects, because now I'm aware of them. And now those steps give me the power to do something about that stuff, especially 10 and 11. And my favorite step is about carrying the message. The way my life is now, I'm able to dedicate as much time as I can to carrying this message. They say if you do the right things, God will always provide, and that's happened for me, because I don't earn a lot, but I have enough. I have exactly what I need, and I've done service. I started off washing cups at meetings, and now I'm blessed to be able to record myself at a share today, for a change. But I do recordings at shares. I help out with music. My friends and I play guitar. I'm there for people that go through things, like I mentioned about my aunt earlier that passed away, and I made that all about me. I used on that stuff. I used and drank on when times were good. I used and drank when times were bad. But this year, I've been able to be there for friends that are going through stuff. I'm a trusted individual now. People allow me close enough to their families that I can be there for them, and that's incredible. That's proof that this works. Because people used to see me and they'd want to run. They didn't want to be around me, and now all of a sudden I'm reliable, and I'm loyal, and I can genuinely help and care and love others. And that's incredible. When when it talks, I love God incidents. You learn in the program about God incidences, and one of the biggest ones for me, obviously that I'm still alive, but one of the other ones happened right here in this very same room in February this year, when I went out for my first weekend out of treatment, and my father came down from Joburg, and he sat with me just over there, and already on the way to the meeting, I wanted to let him know that I'm in the right place, and I'm planning this brilliant share, like it was going to be epic, and he was going to know like that I'm doing okay, and everything's amazing, and all this stuff. And of course, the second I got there, I couldn't say anything. But as people started sharing in the room, as we do in these rooms, I started feeling parallels with their shares. Oh, that's a bit of my life, and that's a bit of my life there, and that's a bit of my life there. And I looked over at my dad, and he was crying. And I thought, oh no, like what's upset him now? Maybe he shouldn't have come to the meeting, etc. All these projections. And when I got outside to speak to him at the end, I said, Dad, like what was wrong? And like are you upset? And he said, no, these are tears of joy, because everybody that spoke today, in some way, what they said reminded me of your life and what I've seen. And I know you're in the right place. And, that's one of the most amazing things that I've ever experienced with my dad. This is somebody who, we wouldn't speak for weeks at a time. I gave him such stress last year that he had 3 strokes. And they had to put stents in his heart. And he says it wasn't me, but I know it was me and what I was doing, because it's strange how I got better, and now all of a sudden, he doesn't have those problems anymore. And we speak to each other every single day, and if he doesn't phone me, I phone him. I'm so thankful for that relationship, because I never knew it was possible. I realized that my father was there for me all along, and I spent so many years being a bastard to him. But I'm grateful that today, through this program, I can change that. My sister, who I've never ever had a relationship with, she was a tough one, because I can't bullshit my sister. She's seen me grow up, she's grown up, she's seen every little bit of rubbish that's come out of my mouth. And I had to stand back and just sort of let things unfold, because there was no ways I could just go to my sister and say, I'm sorry, because that's all I've ever done to my sister. And just about a month ago, she's getting married next year, and just about a month ago, her husband-to-be phoned me and asked me to be a groomsman at their wedding. And that's massive for me, because, truth be told, if they wanted me to be a waiter at that wedding, I'm willing to do it. Willingness carries over into every part of my life. And I'm just so happy that I can do something, be involved in the photos, and just be there and shut my mouth and be there for my sister, and that she's happy and that she's proud of me. Other God moments and other amazing times in recovery have been willing, first of all, to move down to this lovely little seaside town, I was going to do my 3 months and get to Joburg, and I don't know where I would have been, if I'd done that, but I followed every suggestion. And I moved down here, and I took up diving, which was another God incident in itself, because I did diving a very long time ago with my father, and he's had all this diving equipment in his garage all these years, and the day that I phoned him up and I said, Dad, I'm going to do some diving, he's like, hey, I've got like basically a full kit for you. That's a God incident, because the things and this ocean and the things that I've experienced down there are incredible. I remember going out on my first shark snorkeling experience and jumping out, and there's all these sharks everywhere, and they're bumping me on the fins, and I'm going step 3, step 3, step 3, and loving it, like, justified fear, but a good kind of fear, because it wasn't the fear of dying, it wasn't the fear of being alone, it was the fear of, of the unknown, I guess. But I came out of it all right, and now I've done 20 shark dives, I've heard whales singing underwater, that it vibrates my wetsuit. I've spent time, I mean, some Monday mornings I've seen dolphins, whales, sharks, by 10 o'clock, and I'm like, this couldn't be more different to who I was and what I was doing. Just another little God incident on the diving story was I lost my underwater camera on this one dive, and I was very upset because it held a lot of pictures of my father and I from that first weekend out. And I didn't know it, but at the point where I lost it, the skipper marked it on the GPS, and we did another dive, and all of a sudden, I was down in the dumps. I was so upset about this camera, and the dive master said to me, look, we're going to go look for your camera again. We're supposed to go to another point, but we're going to go look for your camera. And on the way to look back for the camera, we came across this whale that was swimming upside down and clapping his fins like this for 10 minutes, 50 meters from the boat. And I was moved to tears when I saw this, because I just thought, how does this even happen, Even the guys who've been diving here for 20 years said, you don't understand how lucky you've been that you've seen this. And we got back on the dive, and I thought, there's no ways I'm going to find my camera after that, that was like God's work right there. And they saddled me with a new diver, and I had to look after this guy, and he was up and down, and I was writing off my camera in my mind. I was like, there's no ways I can look after this guy and get the camera. And about 10 minutes into the dive master came and tapped me on the back and handed me my camera back. And I was filled with gratitude like I can't even tell you, because I've managed to obviously keep those photos of my father and I, but also that was, in retrospect, that was God saying to me, I got this, relax, I've got this. And now I'm able to also, something else that's been really amazing for me is that I'm trusted to drive people of my kind around, which is one of my favorite aspects of service down here. I want to work with addicts and alcoholics because I'm one of those, and I know how they feel, and they know how I feel, we're in this together type of thing. And I've always had this massive hole in my soul that I've filled with every possible thing except the truth. And I'm so grateful that I can sit here today and share about that truth, because now that I know who I am and what makes me tick, I can do my best to do that 12th step, and carry the message to other people that are going through that stuff. And I'm so grateful, for my sponsor and for this program and for my friends in this fellowship, because I've had a great first year in recovery. It's been amazing. Things have happened that I have never dreamed of, and it didn't involve my ex coming back to me, and it didn't involve all these ideas that I had, and also that spiritual guru said to me, as long as you don't define what is great, great things will happen. And I've gone out and I've experienced that, and that's why this program is about experience, because if you experience that stuff, it starts to come true. And I know that when, as I said, I've had a good first year in recovery, but when my tough times come, they will come, because life's not easy. I know that I can fall back on my sponsor and on my friends in the fellowship, and they will look after me as I try and look after them, because that's how this whole thing works. The one hand washes the other. How much time we got? Okay. There's I'm so grateful that I can be here today, because I didn't know that a life of sobriety was possible. I've realized that my life is not about what I'm getting, it's about what I'm becoming. And that my life is not about me, it's about other people. And living life in that way has changed my perspective completely. And I wake up every day and I'm thankful. I drop to my knees, I pray, I do those step 11s at night. That's practical advice. They say it's suggestions, but ask, listen, do as you're told. I've done that to the best of my ability, and I can't tell you the miracles that it's performed in my life. They say it's suggestions, but they're more. You got to do them. You got to do them, because once you get out there and experience the differences that it can bring to your life, the way it can change your perspective, and the way that God really works in my life today, I can't deny that I've been wrong all along. I've been a tool all along, but now through the power of this program, I've got the power to change my life. Wake up every day and have a choice whether I'm going to respond or react to things. Have a choice whether I'm going to use or drink. And through carrying that message, make my life about other people, because that has been the single greatest thing that has filled that hole in my soul, that I felt I've had my entire life. So yeah, I think I'm going to leave it there. Thanks for letting me share.